Sanders made it look like a walk in the park. Even legendary NBA star Michael Jordan dabbled in 2 professional sports. None of them held a candle to the abilities that Bo Jackson showcased in football and baseball equally. So, how good was Bo Jackson actually? Well, the Yak Fam's got you covered, because we're about to discover just how good Bo Jackson actually was. Vincent Edward Jackson was his birth name, and he came into this world on November 30th, 1962. Born into a large family, the little whippersnapper was one of an eye-popping 10 kids. His mom, Florence Bond Jackson, obviously struggled to make ends meet, and his dad had a second family on the other side of town. Needless to say, times were tough for Vincent and his brothers and sisters, but tough times create strong men, and that was certainly the case with Bo Jackson. As the young boy grew, his family thought his personality resembled that of a wild boar. Only this boar was constantly beating up neighborhood kids, breaking valuable things, and essentially wreaking havoc anywhere he could. It was from this wild boar facade where Jackson started to become simply known as Bo, and Bo was a menace. His mother was at her wit's end, so she threatened to send him to reform school. Clearly, a mother knows best, because her strategy worked. The out-of-control juvenile started channeling his aggression towards athletics and less on causing mischief. Jackson cleaned up his act and kept his nose clean. By the age of 13, he was competing in sports against grown men. Jackson was a future star in the making, not only on the football field and baseball diamond, but he thrived at track and field as well. He won decathlons by so much, he didn't even have to compete in the final event, which was the 1,500-meter long distance run. It was the only event in track and field that Bo despised. Everything else, he was top-notch. Throwing, jumping, sprinting, you name it, and he could do it better than the rest. The hype began to take shape in high school. Bo shined as a 3-sport hero. He attended Micadori High School in McCalla, Alabama. On the baseball team, he was a power-hitting outfielder and belted 20 home runs his senior year. It may not sound like a ton, but considering he only played in 25 games, the guy was cranking 4-baggers almost every game. On the football team, he rushed for over 1,000 yards during his senior year. On the track team, he was a 2-time state champion in the decathlon. Bo was such a remarkable athlete, he caught the attention of the New York Yankees. The pinstriped regime liked him so much, they decided to draft the highly touted high school prospect in the second round of the 1982 draft. Unfortunately for George Steinbrenner and the New York Yankees, Bo had his own goals and ultimately chose to get his education over a chance to play for one of the most prestigious sporting franchises in history. Jackson attended Auburn University on a full football scholarship, an incredibly smart decision for a young man with all the talent in the world. This was one of many great decisions Bo made in his life. While at Auburn, the triathlete continued to excel in all 3 of his sports. He finished his collegiate career batting .338 while previewing clear signs of both blazing speed and incredible Hulk-like power. The outfielder swatted 28 home runs in 90 games and swiped 19 stolen bases. The 66 base on balls were proof that opponents were scared to pitch to this dude, and who could blame him? Bo was a freak of nature, and we mean that in the nicest way possible. Track and field was arguably Bo's best sport growing up, and there were obvious examples of that at Auburn. If the money was better for track and field athletes, Jackson may have pursued the sport further. As it was, he started to focus on money-making sports. Hey bro, ain't nobody gonna fault you for that. You gotta make that money. On the gridiron, Bo was as tough as nails. His gaudy SEC numbers were further proof of his greatness, setting numerous records at his alma mater. Most pointedly is the 6.6 yards per carry, which is just an insane amount of yardage to average. Nobody could tackle Jackson one-on-one, and when all was said and done, the Alabama boy finished his 4 years at Auburn to the tune of 43 touchdowns and over 4,300 yards. Winning the Heisman Trophy during his senior year of 1985. It took a gang of tacklers to bring down the wild boar. Bo knew early on of the risks that came with football. He was smart enough to know that an injury could be devastating to one's life. He publicly expressed concerns about playing in the NFL, but when push came to shove, the money talked, as it always does. Bo Jackson's introduction to professional sports was a bit of a rocky road. He was originally drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1986, but refused to play for them. Jackson believed the Bucs cost him his eligibility for baseball his senior year at Auburn. Bo thought an illegally sanctioned trip was planned intentionally by the school, a deliberate mistake in order to sway the superstar to play professional football instead of baseball. Well, Bo got the last laugh because the Buccaneers still drafted him first overall, and Bo refused the deal like he said he would. He then went on to sign with the Kansas City Royals and began his baseball career. Such a cutthroat move. Bo always knew how to handle himself. You gotta love it. It may have seemed crazy to some, but Bo turned down a $7 million contract offered by the Tampa Bay Bucks and opted for a $1 million contract to play for the Royals, who drafted him in the 1986 MLB draft in the 4th round. Bo would forfeit his rights to play for the Bucks, and so the following year, he was redrafted by the Raiders in the 7th round. It was a general consensus around the league that Jackson will be focusing on baseball. So, needless to say, it was a risky move by the Raiders organization. Al Davis was not one to shy away from a risk, and he presented Bo with an intriguing deal. It was one he couldn't refuse. Raiders owner Al Davis agreed to let Bo play baseball for the Royals and then join the Raiders once his MLB commitments were complete. It was a genius move by Davis, really. Bo got a taste of Major League Baseball in his first season of 1986. The following year, however, he made the team as the starting left fielder, and the country finally saw his first glimmers of power and speed. Jackson hit 22 homers with 10 stolen bases. Then in 1988, he had a coming out party of sorts by hitting 25 home runs with 68 RBI and 27 stolen bases. And things only got better from there. In 1989, he clobbered 32 more long balls to go along with 105 RBI and 26 stolen bases. A true power and speed threat that was rare to find in MLB. Willie Mays, Barry Bonds, and his dad, and maybe Jose Canseco. Those are a few players that come to mind when making a comparison. In today's game, Ronald Acuna Jr. and Shohei Ohtani make it look routine to steal a base and crack a homer in the very next at-bat. It is such an ironic story for Bo Jackson. Originally, he wanted to focus on baseball after leaving Auburn. Once he got a whiff of that offer Al Davis was putting forth, he jumped at the opportunity. He was compensated handsomely for his efforts, and everything seemed to be working out at first. Remember, Bo was completely aware of the risks that came with the sport. Maybe not about CTE and concussion protocols, which players follow today, but he knew football was inherently dangerous. His first season in 1987, he played in 7 games and ran for 554 yards with 4 touchdowns, including a famous 91-yard scamper during a Monday Night Football game in which Bo ran into the tunnel and seemingly disappeared. The following year, he suited up for 10 games, rushing for another 580 yards and 3 touchdowns. His best season was 1989, when he amassed nearly 1,000 rushing yards and had 4 runs to pay dirt. Tragically, this season was the pinnacle of his career, for the following season ended in devastation. The Raiders had finally broken through and made the playoffs during the 1990 season. Bo dressed for 10 regular season games and was ecstatic to be in his first playoff action. It started well as he made 6 carries for 77 yards before the worst-case scenario unfolded. Jackson suffered a broken hip. The play looked innocent enough, but when Jackson stood up, he couldn't put any weight on his left side. He damaged his hip socket so badly he was forced to retire from football forever. Then, subsequently, he was cut by the Kansas City Royals at the start of the next baseball season. Although he tried to come back with the White Sox and Angels, he was never the same player. Bo was in the prime of his career when he was struck down. In both the MLB and NFL, Bo was a rising superstar with the capability to be the best in the world in either sport. It was nothing short of a tragedy what happened to him. He was the first and only player ever to play in 2 different sports all-star games. Think about that for a second. This guy was incredible, and it would have been amazing to see where his career would have taken him if he never suffered such an agonizing injury. Although the injury was brutal, it didn't stop Bo from continuing his path of excellence. One of his more famous ventures included a gig with Nike to advertise their brand new state-of-the-art cross-training shoes. The Bo Knows commercials were idolized by athletes across America. Jackson also landed acting roles and started multiple businesses in his home state of Alabama. NBC aired a cartoon that featured Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, and Bo Jackson, an obvious sign that Bo was considered the most talented player in the NFL. The cherry on top for Bo Jackson is that he married his college sweetheart, Linda. They've been married since 1987 and have 3 kids together. Bo vowed never to be the man his father was. Jackson has turned down numerous offers for positions and jobs that will make him large financial gains. But Bo likes his privacy and loves his family and wants to be there for him. For this, we can safely say that Bo was and always will be a leader and stands in a class all his own. So when you're sitting around the table playing cards with your buddies and the question comes up about how good Bo Jackson was, you can look him square in the eyes and tell him with the utmost confidence, he was one of the greatest athletes in American sports history. Nobody demonstrated power and speed to his degree. He was Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson wrapped into one. The strength to tear the cover off a baseball, the speed to outrun an entire team of defenders in a 90-yard dash, and a tenacious appetite that spoke volumes. Bo knew it all.